In this video, I want to talk about a few examples of tools that teachers can use to use formative assessment, since it is such a valuable strategy in helping students to learn. All right, so while it's the case that quizzes and practice problems used in a traditional classroom do contain a lot of data that can be very valuable, there are many digital instruction tools available to help teachers use formative assessment effectively. These tools make it easier for teachers to find, create, administer, and analyze formative assessments they can also be more engaging and fun for students. So the first one is Socrative, and the idea with Socrative is that it's on-the-fly formative assessment, but you can also do some predefined activities as well. So you create a classroom, you give students a code to join into it. The process is pretty easy to get students to the place where they can see and answer the questions. But the feature that I think is very interesting with it is how you can make it an on-the-fly, just spur-of-the-moment kind of formative assessment. Like teachers would do in a low-tech way of just asking a question and having students raise their hands. This program makes it very easy to just quickly get a gauge of how students are thinking. So this tool is built pretty well for synchronous learning, where everybody is doing kind of the same activity at the same time. And you can also get reports of the data that's collected. So while you can see the results immediately, and depending on the style of question you use, you can even see a percentage of how many got it right or wrong, if that's something that's indicated in your question. Then you can also get reports later on, which is true for almost all of the tools that I'm going to talk about, is that you can get very detailed data analysis tools where they've already crunched all the numbers to tell you which questions were missed most often, which of those questions need more reinforcement, how each individual student did, and a lot of data, maybe the time that they used to get through the different questions, depending on the tool, how many times they retried the questions. So each one of these tools takes the data analysis side of it and makes it very easy because it's already done for you. So another really good tool is called Kahoot. So Kahoot makes these really fun games for students to play. So you can ask multiple choice questions, and then the students are joined into this game session, and it's competitive between the different students. So they really get into playing the game, trying to win it. They get that feedback very immediately then. So this is even a tool that they can use as part of their instruction. So maybe during a lesson, you can embed a Kahoot into the lesson. And what's kind of neat about it is to create what they call these campfire moments where you can pause after asking a question to then discuss it a little bit more. So it can not only be like a review game kind of activity, but it can be used integral as part of the instruction as well. Quizlet is fairly similar to Kahoot, but one big difference is that it can be asynchronous and it can be self-paced. So the idea behind Kahoot is that it's the class as a whole is stepping through it together. Quizlet is where you could assign it for homework as extra practice, and the students could play it whenever they want to. You could do it as a classroom activity together, just a little bit more self-paced, and it's a different twist on the idea that Kahoot brings, and it makes it really fun and visually appealing for students to work with. Quizlet is another great formative assessment, which this is a tool that a lot of students have gone to just to make flashcards or even to find flashcards about different subjects, and there are tons and tons of them available on any kind of a subject. But teachers can use these as well. Teachers can create the flashcard sets to match up exactly their curriculum in the classroom. But they also can use some of the different tools within Quizlet to gauge student understanding on these important vocabulary concepts. So there are many different modes that Quizlet has, not just a simple flashcard kind of set. There are different modes that help the students to learn the vocabulary and learn the definitions, and then different modes that are a little bit more like games that they play that also help to reinforce those. Some of these games are very individual, and some of these games are group-based as well, so students could work together. So there's a lot of different choices and different ways that teachers and students can use it. But in any of those different sets, then teachers can gather a great amount of data about how well students are progressing through learning these. Google Forms is also a great tool for doing formative assessment. It typically is used to make surveys, to do quizzes. So if they're just even really longer assessments or very short assessments, then it's fairly easy to get the students in there to answer the questions. There's the capability to do some automatic grading as well, and providing reports to the students and everything. So sometimes Google Forms can be a way to take kind of a worksheet activity and transform it into a formative assessment activity, as well as one that then ends up giving students feedback immediately with the practice problems that they're working through. And what's really nice, along with a lot of the other tools, is that it provides some graphs and charts so teachers can see very easily and very quickly how the class was doing on these different questions. So again, with all these tools, it's ways to get lots and lots of data to help inform instruction. Plickers is a really interesting tool because it's a low-tech solution. So it does involve the teacher having a smartphone or a computer or something like that. But the idea is that these students have just a paper card that kind of looks like a QR code, and they spin it in different directions to indicate maybe A, B, C, or D on a question that a teacher poses. So this is another way for teachers to very quickly gauge the understanding of their students, but then take it to the next step and have really good data analysis right then and there, in a very easy to consume manner, that helps teachers then take that very important step of not just checking for understanding, but then making informed decisions about their instruction. And a learning management system such as Schoology also has many, many great formative assessment tools. So learning management systems are, for the most part, intended to organize course materials, and organize activities together into lessons and modules, and provide those materials to students to interact with. But they also have really powerful assessment tools and the same kind of data analysis tools that come in many of these other things. These kind of tools align with standards really well. It makes it a little bit easier to find the connections between the activity you're doing, and those standards. And in the Schoology example of the assessment tool that can be brought in, it does feel a lot like the standardized tests that students end up taking. So it is nice for students to get a little more accustomed to the kinds of the calculators and the protractors and the note-taking techniques they can use in these assessments, that they can get a little bit more comfortable with. But this can definitely be used for formative assessment as well as summative assessment, and again, providing lots and lots of data. So I think all of these tools would be very helpful for teachers to increase the amount of formative assessment activities they do in their classroom, as well as tap into that really valuable data to make great decisions in their classroom of how best to support their students and get all of their students to continue in their learning journey.